So it is 3:45, and we are going to get started today with our digital wellness with common sense and cyberbullying. Today is part two, recognize and agency. And to present this session, we have the amazing Sue Tots from Common Sense Education, who will be facilitating the session. But before I hand it over to her, I just want to go over some logistics about today's session. So we do have in our Microsoft Teams the chat feature where you can post any questions, any comments. Um, Please go ahead and type those in the chat. I do kindly ask you to keep your microphones muted. And, if you're wanting to share any comments whenever there's, the opportunity to do so, you are welcome to unmute and kind of interact with the presenter today. So let's go ahead and get started here with our session. So without further ado, I will hand it over to the amazing Sue. Thank you so much for facilitating this session. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Angela. Feel free to pop in whenever you'd like. It does get lonely, as you all know, chatting with a bunch of initials, but I am happy to do whatever I can to make this as engaging and as helpful as possible. I know my colleague Jamie was here and chatting with you all. I don't know, whenever he was here last and presenting on some of these resources. I'm going to do my best today to just pick up where he left off. And as many of you know, he is traveling abroad for the moment, and so I am Stu Thoughts, and I live here in Southern California. I am kind of his Southern California counterpart, so I work doing the same things that Jamie does in Northern California with all of you, and all the way through the central part of the state. And I am here in Southern California, and I've been with Common Sense for 12 years now. I started in Chicago, and now I'm here in Los Angeles. So I am going to start off by just doing a quick question, just because I'm not sure if Jamie did this one before, and if he did, let me know. But I have these questions that we've been building out just because we want to have a little bit of culture building and a little bit of understanding between our different teachers. So I'm going to share a quick question with you all just as an opener. This kind of relates to bullying in a way, but more just to relationships and communication. So I want to ask from your perspectives. When you all see, oops, sorry, of course I just jumped on that. When you all see, if this is a situation that you saw in your daily life, you saw that one of your colleagues posted something that was just not quite brilliant about one of your students, a student in your district, right? You saw that a colleague posted a disparaging comment about a student. Can you tell me, what's your reaction, or what do you do? What do you do in this situation? So if you are able to make see in the chat, tell me a little bit about how do you react? What do you do for this, and how do you kind of mitigate these type of situations? Brave souls, huh? There they go. There they roll. Elizabeth, it's a hypothetical. I know none of your teachers have ever done this before.
Oh.
It's, what would you do? Yeah, right? Ignore it, meet with them privately. Oh, right. Kristen, you might meet with it. Depends on your relationship, right? Maybe it's a misunderstanding, right? Share it with an admin, right? If it's something, especially if there's maybe some PII shared. Are you guys able to like each other's comments? Student works well with me. Try a different approach. Yep. Ah, yes. Like, You might say something positive about the kid. Ask them about it if they didn't delete it. Yeah, maybe your cite first person. Depends on how close you are with that colleague. Yeah. Yeah, maybe not say anything online. You do not need to start a war with this person, right? You do not need to start this, but maybe say something in person, but it really depends on who that person is and what your relationship is with them. Yeah. But I've been asking a lot of folks about different situations just because it's not that I am necessarily anticipating that, that all of you do this necessarily, right? Part of it is to get get our staff, get our admins thinking about, ooh, that puts your colleagues in kind of a sticky situation. You don't want to be that person that puts them in that sticky situation where they got to be like, oh, geez, what do I do? Right. But of course, if any of you are admins or if any of you are seasoned teachers on this call, I don't want to come out and say, don't ever do this, teachers, right? Don't ever do this. This is a terrible thing to do. Don't ever, like, I'm not going to wag my finger in your face and say, don't post comments that are disparaging about your students online. You have to be kind, right? I'm not going to say that to you all because that's not very effective. That's not very interesting. But what I do want to know is I want to know, how do we respond to this? How to react to this? It's kind of it's a bad look for your school, right? It's a bad look for your students. It could potentially get you in some sort of trouble, right? There's all these bad things but in reality, how are we dealing with this? Because we know that we see this stuff a lot of times. I see it a lot. I see people who are just generally negative, even if the student isn't named. I'm not saying it's with your school district at all, because I don't even know any of you, right? But this is kind of the way that I want to bring teachers in, is just putting themselves into these dilemmas themselves and thinking about, oh, this kind of stuff happens, right? We as adults face this stuff sometimes. Maybe it's not about our students, but maybe we see comments that we see online about other people or about, bad situations or misinformation or whatever. And it's this kind of stuff that we talk about. It touches all of our lives. So I just wanted to get into that mindset that this digital citizenship stuff, these ideas about relationships and communication and the ways in which we treat each other. Obviously, I know many of you think of this, but it hits home for all of us, not just, this isn't just something that's a nice thing that we should do for our kids. This is something that all of us should be thinking about. It isn't just an abstract, this is, something that we teach in class and it never touches us. It really does. I came up with 10 scenarios, right, where we can think about how do we deal with these kinds of things. They're not major, right? They're just kind of these everyday situations of ethics and, dilemmas, right? And so I just want to, just point out that as teachers, many of us have these kind of situations where we have to deal with this ourselves on a regular basis. So with that, I'm going to begin. And I am going to try to make sure that I'm opening the right. Oh, let's see. Oh, let's try this other window here. Sorry. Okay, here we go. I'm not a Teams person. I don't know if y'all have figured that out yet. I am not a Teams person. I'm doing my best here. All right. So I think I am showing you a window that says being proactive with cyberbullying issues. All right.
Yes, we see that. Yes.
Okay, and you're not seeing like my entire desktop or like anything messy on there. It's just a slideshow.
It's just the window, yes.
I mean, I've got nothing terrible on there, but trying to be a pro. So when it comes to being proactive, I don't know if any of you know this, but about me, but if you spend a few minutes hanging out with me, you'll find out that I come up from a public health background, and if you know, I always tell people I'm not an emergency room doctor. I'm a public health practitioner. And what that means is I very much am looking at systems. I'm looking at the ways in which we are creating culture, the ways in which we are being proactive and preventive when it comes to trying to give kids the skills, the culture, the language, the ideas that they need in order to be able to prevent bad stuff from happening, right? So, oh yeah, good. That's fine if you see my menu bar. Thank you so much, Stacy. So if you see anything on here, I do not mind being interrupted. If you want to put a comment in there anywhere, I'm happy to stop and address questions. I'm very informal. I'm also, in addition to some of the work that I do with Common Sense, I'm the co-founder of Equity in Action California, which is a informal group of teachers that has been going for about the last 15 years, not 15 years, last 3 years here, 4 years here, working on diversifying the speakers within ed tech spaces and trying to get as many presenters of color into these spaces. So that is also another lens that I'm looking at or looking through as we go forward today. So here's what I want you all to just sit and think about for 1 second. I know many of you are already doing a lot of digital citizenship stuff, but when it comes to the spaces that your kids are interacting with, your students are interacting in some of these digital spaces, what do you want to avoid and what do you want to see in your digital spaces, during the school year? So I'm not even gonna make you type this out. I'm gonna show you the answers that I got from another district. I'm gonna give you the cheat sheet, okay? This is what a recent district said to me. They said, these are the things that we want to avoid, and you see in there, bullying, racist language, inappropriate language, anything over here. What do you want to see? We want to see things like collaboration or original work, praise, enthusiasm, feedback, students producing their own thoughts and ideas. We want to see innovation. We want to see good use of technology. Do you guys generally, is there anything on here that you might change? Is there anything on here that you might say, oh, I firmly agree with this. I 100%, I want to emphasize this. Or, what do you see on here that you agree with or disagree with, kind of? So throw that in the chat, maybe. Or say it out loud, either way. Is there anything in here that's missing? Anything in here that you're like, oh yeah, for sure, this is the kind of stuff that I try to do my best for? Yeah. Inappropriate jokes. Sometimes I don't think they're jokes. Sometimes they say, oh, I was just joking, right? Yeah. You really, when it comes to understanding the viewpoint and the perspectives of others, yeah, Ricky, I'm 100% with you when it comes to that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that we want our students to definitely talk about. Oh, I didn't realize you guys could do these little counters. They're showing up as a blank box on my screen. I just see a 3, and I'm assuming it's a thumbs up and not a that was a terrible answer, right? I'm assuming that it's an agreement, right? Yes. Okay, cool. So yes, it's a thumbs up. It comes up as blank for me. So yes, good. So I'm glad you are in agreement with some of this. And so the question that we're kind of going to answer over the course of our time together is, how do you establish those expectations, the relationships, the behaviors in those digital spaces? I love seeing kids working together. I love seeing them collaborate, build on each other's ideas. I love, that's the kind of stuff that we as teachers, that's why we're using this tech, right? We want them to be creative together. We want them to be able to build upon each other. So with all of that, we do have to make sure that we facilitate those expectations and relationships and behaviors. So that's our point here, right? And so what I'm bringing to get today is some online scenarios. We'll begin with some online scenarios to give your kid the practice that they need to have these discussions so that they can facilitate these relationships and be able to have these conversations. Just as we did, kind of at the beginning. I would love it if I was in your space and I could just put some of these scenarios up on the wall and just say all right, go and talk about these things, right? I hate not being able to be in your physical space and just hear the conversations in the room with you guys working this out with each other. That's what we're going to do here with your students today, is I'm going to give you some of these scenarios that you can bring to your students so you can be the one that gets to walk around and think about some of these, listen in on some of the conversations they're having about some of these moral dilemmas and guide that, right? It's just, you have to give them the space and the opportunity to be able to have these conversations. So with this, we have these 3 thinking routines. One is called the Digital Habits Checkup, one is called the Feelings and Options, and one is called Take a Stand. And so I'm going to share one that is just this one from Feelings and Options. And I want you to think about this. This kind of stuff happens. I don't know if anybody works with secondary kids, maybe even upper elementary. This kind of stuff happens all the time. So here's a scenario. We have Daryl, right? And Daryl recorded a humiliating video of Jared. and posted it on his story for everyone to see. So Jared was mortified and asked Daryl to please stop and take the video down. But Daryl, he did not listen because the video was so funny. And everybody was saying, Daryl, you are a comic genius, right? This is so good. This is so hilarious. And by the next day, it seemed like everyone at school had seen this video. And Jared tried to act like it didn't bother him, but he was just embarrassed and went straight home. And he hasn't been back in a couple days. And his family is just worried about him because he's so, he's so down and he's not his usual self. So I just want you to imagine for a moment that you are the teacher in this room. You are, this if this actually happens at your school and you're the admin, what are you going to do for, take that moment and just think about, how do I repair this? Right? What do I do in this situation if I've got Daryl and Jared and their parents sitting in my office or sitting in my classroom calling me up and saying, here's the situation, we want this kid punished, or we want this is not a big deal. This happens all the time. This was outside of school. Like, what are you doing in this situation when Daryl and Jared and their families, when the situation presents itself in your doorstep? How do you handle this kind of thing? So throw it in the chat if you haven't figured that out already. Tell me what you're doing. How do you deal with this stuff? Oops, sorry. Yeah, you guys are using these restorative circles. Yeah, maybe that would work here, right? Sure. Of course, maybe things are funny and it's fun to post funny things, but not at the expense of another person, right? Kids have got to understand when something is funny and when it feels like it's just being mean, right? So if you're able to mediate that discussion, right, Stacy, you're focusing on this idea of a victim and perpetrator. Yeah, absolutely. Something that would be handled with my SAS. Who's your SAS? What does that mean? Your student advisory person? So it's like a culture person who talks about some of these situations, maybe? Yeah. And you have to get parents involved, restorative circles, but only if Jared agrees to this, certainly bringing it up in class. Yeah, but at the risk of further embarrassing Jared, right? Pull in your counselors. These are all people. You got parents. Oh, student assistant specialists. Cool. Yeah. Okay. You got counselors. You've got parents. Maybe if this is something you end up getting, if it's something more severe, like, man, sometimes people have to bring in legal, or like it can just cause a lot of folks, right? You have to bring in a lot of folks when you have to deal with this kind of stuff, right? So it can be, this is actually, I mean, I'm not going to say it's minor. I'm sure Jared would not say it's minor, but this is not, this is not pornographic. This is nothing where a student is injured physically, right? This is not posting a fight. I'm taking a very, very minor situation here. And when we have to deal with this, so we have to deal with Jared's feelings. We have to deal with Daryl's feelings. We have to deal with like everybody that's involved in this, including their families, including the teachers, including all the kids that saw all of this, right? So this kind of thing, we can deal with this eventually, but it takes a lot of time. It involves a lot of people, and it's a big pain, right? So instead, let's pretend this did not happen. Daryl and Jared are two fictitious kids, and instead, I am your teacher today, and I am bringing this fictitious story about Daryl and Jared into class, right? And I am going to read this story with you, and we are going to dissect it and have a conversation about it. So before this happens in real life, before something like this happens, I want to just talk about this with you as a fictitious story. So same thing. I'm your teacher. I'm coming in and I'm sharing the story about Daryl and Jared. And then after we do this, I am going to ask you all, as my students in class, imagine how the situation could be handled. Oh, you guys, how can I compete with thunder and lightning? right? Awesome. Oh my gosh, you guys are so lucky. Yeah, no, I'm sure you may not feel lucky. I hope you feel lucky because lightning is better than sunshine. I know. Sorry, Stacy. So, so how do you ask your students, if you are the students, what are some ideas about ways in which you could handle this situation and highlight the options that lead to the most positive outcome, right? What could we ask these kids to do, Daryl and Jared? What would be something that, yep, so we're role playing here, right? So, how could you do this in your classroom? What kind of options would your students come up with for the fictitious Daryl and the fictitious Jared? What kind of options do they give you? What are they going to say? Yeah, yeah. What could all the kids who saw the video do? Yeah, exactly. So how do you take a stand? What does that even mean? Yeah. Please don't share it, right? Tell these kids, man, isn't Jared humiliated enough? You do not need to forward this video. You do not need to post it. You do not need to like it. You do not need to laugh at it in the hallway. Somebody needs to be a friend to this poor kid, right? Who's having such a hard time. Um, Figure out how you would care for Jared. Figure out how you would tell Daryl, listen, we like you anyway. You don't have to post these videos, right? You don't have to do this. So it's one thing for us to say this as the old people in the room, as the adults in the room, but when you post this situation up on a screen and you have your students discuss how to be able to take care of each other, who's feeling what in this situation, and how do we end up resolving this conflict? And so, when we ask our students, we can use this handout here where you insert the dilemma in that very first section up here. You insert the dilemma here, and then you identify who are the different people involved and what makes it challenging. Why is it tough for them? Why is it tough for Jared? Why is it tough for Daryl? Why is it tough for all the people who are seeing it? What do you think each person in the dilemma is feeling? Right. And then imagine what options might be okay. There's no one right answer, and then think about how you might deliver that information. So there is a handout here that breaks it down, that helps you dissect this with your kids and pull this all together, right? So that's the idea. That's one of the digital dilemmas. And that is one of the thinking routines. And if you wanted to see all three of them, they are here, with this click. And this will then take you to, I'm going to give you guys these slides. That's one thing I forgot to do. I will make sure I give you these slides. Angela, help me remember later on. Okay. The other piece that we can do is we can help you facilitate SEL activities. So I don't know how many of you are. I don't know. We have kindergarten through 12th grade. So these digital dilemmas, I would say, are good for upper elementary through high school. There's different ones. You can adjust them. You can do them. But these SEL activities, these are similar to the regular common sense content, but they are all through an SEL lens. So it sounds like any school with an SES person might also have some sort of SEL program in place, is what I hope, or that you have some focus on SEL. And so when it comes to SEL and thinking about self-awareness or self-management or any of these competencies that the Castle framework highlights, we have taken them and we've looked at them through a digital life lens. And so with this, we are taking kind of this idea of what does self-awareness look like in a digital space. So when you see something iffy, like Daryl posting some terrible video, that makes you feel like, oh, poor Jared, right? Like, and how do you identify that feeling and say, oh, something's wrong here, I got to do something, right? How do you, manage? Like, I've been sitting around looking at TikTok for the last 3 to 4 hours, right? It's about time to take a break. Oh, but this next video is so good, right? We got to figure out, as as humans, how to be able to set some sort of balance in our life and do some sort of management of our own screen time. So a lot of the content that we have around the SEL stuff is focused on that. But the one that I want to focus on today is this idea of both social awareness and relationship skills, which both play into this idea of bullying prevention kind of stuff. So when I give you these slides, there is a click here kind of button, and it gives you, I don't know if I can show you this whole thing. Let's see. I might have to stop sharing and then share again. So what it gives you is, all right, let's open one more time because this thing is not, let's see, window, yes, okay, here. So what this is a full set of social and emotional learning lessons, and they are all related to these topics, these competencies over here, but they are broken down by grade band. And so I don't know if you've seen these before, but if you have not, one thing that I want to point out is each of these is a hyperlink directly to a lesson. So this is a lesson related to dealing with digital drama, and it has a video, a handout, and a teacher version in here. So each of these from this doc that I have hyperlinked to has hyperlinks in it itself. I know, hyperlinks coming from the hyperlink, right? So I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Let's share that once again. And let me see if I can show you the window that we are meeting in. Wrong one. Oh boy, SEL and digital life. There we go. Sorry. Okay, not smooth, I know. So you can facilitate these SEL activities, and they all are found at this click here, or you can find them under the regular common sense resources. But I like the clicky because it gives you the full scope and sequence of all of those. And so I do want to share one example of a social awareness piece, and it relates just specifically to gaming because I know it's a huge part of a lot of the lives of our kids and what it is that they're doing. And so there is a video in here. I don't know if I play the video, if you guys will be able to hear it, because I don't know if I set my audio settings, but I'm just going to hit this, and then I'm going to hit this for the subtitle. Whoa! That music is obnoxious anyway. I don't know if you want to hear it. Okay. Did you guys hear that or no? Because it's really loud.
No, we couldn't.
Oh, good.
I think it's fortunately.
It sounds like an 80s like 8-bit video game. So this is a video that where these kids are going through an experience, and one kid in the video game, one of the other players is being a jerk, one of the other players is being like helpful. And so would you say overall that the social interactions are positive and fun or negative, and why? So this is for your fourth graders. As they experience gaming in their own, in their own lives, when they run across people, how are they dealing with them? All right. So that's the kind of social awareness skills we're talking about. You can also send home, resources for families related to the same kind of topics that you're talking about in class. So how, can your kid keep online interactions fun and friendly, especially in games? Here is what a parent could say, right? It's a full script for those parents. And you can send these home with parents to continue the conversations that you had in class, right? So that is the idea with a lot of these family pieces that are related to the SEL content. So Jamie, as you know, has lots of good ideas, and he also wanted me to share some other tips that he had as they related to classroom culture and prevention. And one of the things that he wanted to share was this idea of creating a dilemma. I guess he meant an anonymous dilemma box, maybe a space where kids can share their online dilemmas. I don't know if it's kind of Dear Abby style, or if it's a way for you to learn about some of the dilemmas that your students are experiencing. So he has a hyperlink, I think, here to, no, maybe not. This one he definitely does, where your students are able to express ways in which they overcome digital drama. So this student newsletter example here that he has a poem in here and has some creative artistic expressions that relate to the ways that your students are experiencing their own digital dramas, and how is it that they're dealing with them, and what does that feel like, and just hearing some student perspective on some of that and being able to share that with parents to really open up conversations. And the other one that he has here, this last piece, is some of the quick activities that relate to drama, to bullying, to hate speech, to all of this content are here at at this click right there, related to these quick activities. And so you can do a 15-minute version of a lot of those regular standard lesson plans if you don't have tons of time. So here is one more piece here that is an essential guide to cyberbullying prevention that if you need more, right? I feel like the resources that I've already listed related to social emotional learning and some of those digital dilemmas and maybe a quick version of the regular lessons, that that already is a lot. But if you're like, man, give me the whole smorgasbord, Jamie listed in here, and he wanted to make sure that you had the essential guide to cyberbullying. And so it's just kind of a resource toolkit that had a lot of the resources together that you can then take advantage of if you wanted to do just that. And so I have another preventive kind of presentation that I often do, and this is the quote that I always think about when it comes to, I don't know, any of this culture, any public health in general, right? Or any of the work that we're doing with our students as it relates to trying to help them by being proactive, by going through some of these dilemmas, before they occur, or even after they have occurred, maybe not in the midst of things, but isn't it just much easier to address these things when they're not personal, when they're, when everybody's not looking at this kid who just had this situation happen to them? If you're talking about these situations in the hypothetical, and Jared and Daryl are just two fictitious kids, it's a lot easier to empathize with them when they're not all mired and tangled in the feelings that we have associated with these fictitious kids. Restorative justice circles are amazing. I love them. I love the practice. But to me, restorative justice circles only work if you have something to restore. If you are not coming from a culture where your students already understand how to care for each other, already understand what it means to have good relationship skills, have expectations about what it is that we do for each other and what is the culture at our school, then what are you going to restore to? So you need to build that foundation with your students in a very proactive and preventive way, because it takes a lot less time to have these conversations. It's still an investment. I'm not going to pretend that it's not an investment of your time, but it is still, something that needs to be done, because the consequences of repairing situations is just, it's just so much more time, so much more hurt than it could have been if we were just all doing some sort of tier one, regular conversations about some of these cultural efforts, some of these relationship skills that we're trying to build in our kids. So that is my spiel about why it's important to get ahead of this. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that you all have tons of time to do all this. But that is my reasoning for why being preventive, why everybody should go and get your annual checkup every year, make sure that you are nice and healthy, and not wait until your whole body falls apart before you go see the doctor, right? That's the analogy I'm trying to make here with you and your students. Now, if you need help with any of this implementation, if you want to have a follow up with any of this, if you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds impossible, I don't even know how I'd fit this in with my content, with my standards, with all the 10,000 other things I'm doing, this is what Jamie is offering here. Like, hit this survey button, put your name on there, and he will get back to you. And if you have a question specifically, fill out the survey anyway. Even if you don't have a question, I'd appreciate getting some feedback, because it's very hard to talk to a bunch of people for 40 minutes and pretend like you're just talking to yourself, right? No, I appreciate all of everybody just at least being patient and attending after school on a very loud thunderstorm, lightning filled day. So that is it for me. Angela, would you like to do any kind of like exploration, debrief, questions? What kind of things can we do that would be helpful? Oh, I'm going to give you the slides. That's one thing I can do.
Yes, I will be sharing the resources you share with me. The slide, this presentation or the session is recorded, so I will share part 1 and part 2 with all of you guys, so you have both sessions in the same email. So if you missed out on the first session, you will have that to kind of go over that in addition to the second one. just to thank you, Sue, for your time and all your, I guess, all the things that we can reflect on. I think there are super powerful, to kind of address that as a preventative way, like you mentioned. I think that's a lot difficult to address once the harm's been done. Like you mentioned, I totally agree on that. And um, kind of wanting to ask the teachers, everyone here in our call, if there is anything that you're already doing as far as preventative, strategies for cyberbullying, anything that you've seen in your classroom that you like to kind of share with other teachers to kind of prevent any of this happening, or how you dealt with any of those situations. Anything you'd like to share would be super helpful as I get ready some of the resources here I need to share with you all as the end for the end of this session. Yes, we do have a lot of EdTech tools that will help us in the classroom to kind of keep an eye on our students, what they're doing behind their screens, right? Sometimes it's hard from the front of the room to know what's happening in each of our students' devices. So NetRef is a great class management tool for us to kind of see what students are doing in their laptops as they're in class. I loved the idea of the anonymous dilemma box. We can use Google Forms to have that in our Schoology course page for our students to kind of submit their responses in an anonymous way. So then you can go ahead and grab those discussions and kind of talk with your students, have discussions like you mentioned. So using text to implement some of these ideas is also super helpful. Um, Always tell my students never put anything in ink. Oh, Ricky, that's a good one. Yeah, having that
Is that
conversation.
true though? I don't know. What do you think of that one, Angela? Maybe I'm going to debate you on this because honestly, like, I think, talking here. Okay, so I just want to point out one thing. When we talk about, I struggle with this all the time when it comes to digital footprint and like scaring kids away from this idea that the things that you put online are forever, and like the things that we share about ourselves are potentially dangerous, and like, make sure that you can find nothing, you don't make any mistakes because they're so hard, they're impossible to erase, right? Like that kind of message, I feel like, you know I get a little nervous about that. And part of why I get nervous about that is because I do want my students to understand that this is a very, tech driven world that we live in. And there are a lot of opportunities for you to share your creations, your ideas, the collaboration that you do, the civic engagement that you're part of. Like, especially, by the way, I have teenagers. I have like a 19 and a 17-year-old. So I'm not talking about our kindergartners. I'm talking about, as our kids get older, they have an opportunity to share their voice, their opinions, and some ideas, right? So maybe that is me, and like that's my own children, right? But I also really want to caution this idea that like everything that you do online is forever, because I really always worry about our students, and I worry about suicide is honestly like the line I toe that line, because I don't ever want any student to make a mistake and feel like that their mistake is so big that it's going to define the rest of their life in some way. Like that is something that I'm very cautious about, and I urge all parents and all teachers to make sure that their message is that we love you, we are here for you, there is no mistake so big that we will not help you out with this, right? That we are here to help you through everything that you do, online. And I don't want anybody to be flippant about, casually putting information online and doing all kinds of terrible things, but I do want them to know that when they do make mistakes, we are here to help them out. And so, that there is no mistake so big that they can't overcome it. So I'm very careful about that language. So that's my caution to all of you, and that's just something I just want to emphasize. because it's very important. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And it is a really important conversation that we need to have, like with our students. Yes, you can make mistakes online, but that's not going to, define your future in a way that you have to like drastically make those decisions, right? Like just have a conversation with an adult about what happened, and there's always a way to kind of figure things out. There's always a way out or a solution or something, to do about the situation. But yes, they're in a very like vulnerable age that they get all this information and they may feel like there's no way out of things. So
It is this like all or nothing thinking. It's this like, especially as teenagers, though when you do make a mistake, it feels like the end of the world, right? I'm not even, just mortifying. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy to get over a mistake, right? It's not going to be easy to undo, some of the things that we do when we hurt other people or when we do things that are potentially mortifying or embarrassing, but we can help you. That is what the adults in your life who love you will help you do, right? And there is a way for us to be able to take care of you. So all that good stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Right? This is hard business. I want to
A
get
lot
some
of
teaching because it's easy.
yeah, it's not easy, but a lot of good stuff to reflect and discuss with our students. All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here today. Let me go ahead and post the survey link for all of you to jump on and fill out. Copy link address. Okay, here we go. This ugly URL I'm going to paste over here. Thank you so much for joining. I will send you all the resources and a follow-up email later today. Thank you, Sue, for being here with us one more time. Appreciate all your help and knowledge. And if you don't have any questions, you are free to leave our session. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. And stay dry, guys. Be safe out there.
Enjoy your lightning. Oh, I'm jealous. All right, y'all. Take care and have a
Yes.
good day. Thanks for letting me stop in.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right.
Of course. All right.
Bye.
Take care.